communications, yes.
I'd like to remove the personnel report and put in the amended personnel report dated today.
That personnel report that was
consent agenda.
Right. That personnel report was in the Dropbox. This is just
an amendment
updated.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. And that will be in the consent. And we'll go. We'll just keep moving on. Hearing from folks and public and staff, and we have a few folks signed up. Lots in the room, but we'll go through the folks that signed up first. And I'm looking at Code Red folks. Can't quite read the small writing, but it's James and someone else.
The other someone else could not join us.
There you go.
Shall I stand here?
Yeah. No, please go ahead.
Okay. I'm here on behalf of Code Red to update the board and Dr. Brown on Code Red's recent win at the Ohio Buckeye Regional. This is our second year in a row now, and at this point we are registered to attend championships. This is World Championships in St. Louis on April 24th. We are in the midst of fundraising, so that's quite fun. I believe we need something like $25,000 to attend. We are currently, or last year we finished 88th in our division at out of, I believe, 400 teams. And the year before that we were actually division finalists. So we've done well in the past 2 years. We have another regional, the Finger Lakes Regional at RIT this coming weekend. We would like to invite any and all board members and Dr. Brown to attend, should your schedules allow it. It's quite a lot of fun, and I think that is about all I have to say.
Great. Thanks, James. Well done, as always, by Code Red. And James, like 80 kids?
85 was the final roster this year.
Very good, thank you. Adam.
Yes, hi. Good evening. My name is Adam Paiseki. I am an elementary teacher in the district, and I'm the current president of the Ithaca Teachers Association. First tonight on the agenda, you are approving a revenue number 30, the NEA Foundation of $4,500. Unfortunately, these things are just very budget-wise, and they don't go into detail as to how these things came about. So I just wanted to give a little information. So we have an Ithaca High School math teacher, Gauri Kalhotkar, who has applied for an NEA grant up to $5,000. And Gauri did what most teachers do here in this district and everywhere else, that they take the time to do other things to try and get more supply money, because we know that those things are always lacking. And so she took the time, applied for this grant on her own in her own free time. Through a competitive selection process, she was selected to receive this money that you were approving tonight, and it will be for the high school math department. And this just goes to show how teachers unions and professional organizations are there for the public education, and this is just one example. Okay, thank you. And yes, the platform and Dr. Brown, our superintendent, and members of the Board of Education, you can see we have a very large crowd here tonight. We as teachers are not only here because we are interested in the budget, but we're also concerned over some of the things that we are hearing and not hearing at this point. We would like to make sure that our voice is here, and that to show you that we are here and listening, and that we know that with any COP, even small, will have an impact on the students and families here in the Ithaca City School District. From the teacher standpoint, which I represent, please remember to keep inside that class sizes are things that we need to keep an eye on. We know that this is the best way the students get the best education that they can in our classrooms. Please also keep in mind that we do service a lot of programs and things that benefit the students and families here, so please remember to look at those line items, and we are willing to have conversations with you about the things that most benefit our students. After tonight, we would like to know how you are going to engage the staff and the students in discussions over this budget development, so that it is not behind closed doors. And then lastly, we just want to make sure that you know that interactions of students with human beings, the staff, from the bus drivers to the custodians to the cafeteria workers to the clerical staff to the teachers, is more important than anything that might just provide a good image or a headline for the district. Thank you.
job in our consulting. We think it's Paula.
It is.
There you go.
Hello. He made the perfect segue, and we didn't even plan this, so it's perfect. My name is
who you are.
My name is Paula Seno. Hi. My children used to go to Enfield Elementary School until I had to remove them for many different issues. We've spoke with Dr. Brown and Mr. Landau and everyone, the principal, Lisa Rieger. We've talked about our concerns and the bullying and the gun threats and you name it. Nothing was ever resolved properly. My kids were not safe there. I didn't feel like we were listened to. There was no proper resolution at all. So it's a perfect segue from him stating that if there are budget cuts, there needs to be more aides in the classroom. I'm here to speak not only on my children, but on the fact that all children at Enfield and everywhere in Ithaca City schools and surrounding schools, I don't feel are getting everything that they need. Teachers are not getting the support that they need. And when it comes to aides in the classroom or aides on a school bus, so there's less bullying and less situations, it's all integrated now. We all understand that everybody has the same rights, the same opportunities to learn. However, what's happening is the students with IEPs or students that have an emotional disability are abusing other children, and there is nothing that's in place to protect our children, and it doesn't seem that I had any other choice but to remove my child after I went through the entire system and nothing was done properly in my eyes. They're off the school bus now. They're at Immaculate Conception School. It's a private school. It's absolutely wonderful. They're protected there. They're backed by everybody that's there. If there are further budget cuts and these teachers are pleading for aides and they're pleading for evaluations of children and those cuts are happening, it's only going to get worse. And that's not okay because these children are our futures. And you, as a board, I plead to you to please listen to parents when they come to you, because we're not trying to start anything other than to protect our children and the children that are there. You need to listen to our cries and take it very seriously, because there will be a Columbine or something that's going to happen again. And we are here to forewarn you that if you cut the budgets and you don't listen to parents when we truly are taking time out of our schedules to come to talk to you, that you will be left with a guilty conscience that something has happened when people tried to warn you. I've spoke my piece. Thank you for listening.
On to Patty.
I'm also a mother of a student at Enfield who recently had to be taken out due to the fact that my concerns were brought up to everyone as well. And I will get upset about this because it's very disturbing to me. My child is 6 years old. He is an innocent little boy, and my child's life cannot be replaced. He is irreplaceable, just like everyone in this room. My son, nobody even called me back. You guys all put me on the back burner like I did not matter. My child did not matter. You guys need to understand that I am very aware of the situation. I know that my son is not there, and I know that there are still continuing things happening in Enfield School. When is it going to be enough? 8 kids have been removed from that school this year alone due to bullying. My son has been assaulted numerous times. And what happened? I was expected to send my son every single day until he was crying, refused to go to school. And what did I do? I informed Brown and I informed Matthew Landau he was not coming back to school until a plan was made to ensure he was safe. Nobody even called me back. Did you guys care about my child? Obviously not. Do you care about every child in every school in the district? Obviously not. I would be ashamed. I am literally completely embarrassed by the whole entire Ithaca City School District that you guys didn't listen to me. I gave you guys plenty of time and plenty of opportunities to make it right with me and for my child, for the rest of the staff at Enfield, for all of the other innocent children in that school. My son is not there, and my heart breaks every day for what those teachers may be going through, for what those other children may be going through. Maybe it's just because I have a good car, but I do care. And if you guys don't, That's your loss.
And on to very small writing. Carrie? I think it says Carrie. Carrie. Caroline?
Hi.
There you go. Okay.
We need to set up
Okay.
Okay, so this is not, this is different, okay. So on to, anyone else wish to speak at this time? That isn't already pre-prepared, ready to come up with a PowerPoint presentation. I'm not seeing anyone, so we'll move on. So why not? Let's hear from students from like Ithaca High School. So how's it going, Michaela?
It's going pretty well. So junior prom is this Saturday at the Statler from 8 to 11 p.m. and it's highly anticipated as we've heard about promposals. So now it's the final date, the real date's finally coming up. The production of Legally Blonde will be the weekend of April 6th, I believe, so not this weekend, but next weekend. And a big deal for the seniors, regular decision. Notifications are coming out, and everyone hears from the Ivy Leagues this Thursday at 5 p.m. So that's creating
Just happened to hear Friday at 5. Okay.
Thursday at 5.
Thursday, sir.
The handball tournament hosted by the senior class was 2 Saturdays ago, and that was a successful fundraiser, and it was actually it was really fun. I was able to participate in it. And there were some students who are on a programming team at Ithaca High School. I'm not sure if the team itself is affiliated with the high school, but they had a programming competition this past weekend, and they did very well.
They won. They won.
They won. They won.
We're not surprised.
Senior week information was sent home to seniors last week. Parents, teachers, chaperones are needed for all of the events. And spring sports have started as of tonight. Ithaca boys lacrosse. League's laying a beat down on Horseheads right now.
The game is ongoing. That's good.
Oh, okay.
Connor, you're not going to do a promposal now, right? Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Picture it. Students having a ball, literally. That's right, folks. The butterfly ball happened, and it was a new dance that was student initiated. A lot of people think that, these kinds of new dances that these bureaucrats have to go and approach the central district administration. Well, people forget that, students have these ideas, and this was amazing that the student had an idea for this butterfly ball, and it occurred. So that was an absolutely great thing. So Pi Day was the 14th of this month. The IHS Math Department celebrated it and put emphasis on the mathematical concept, although some did eat copious amounts of the PIE. But any kind of pie at all was celebrated and appreciated, and it doesn't matter if it's PI or PIE. They also celebrated St. Patrick's Day. Dr. Brown, thanks for wearing that green tie. That was nice. And, but again, we focus on the academic, emphasis academics on these holidays. So who was St. Patrick? The fact that he wasn't actually Irish. Those fun facts were taught in the social studies classes. And well, here's something, and we have heard about the great programming success in Code Red's great success. But another one is the IHS Brain Team has had a really bodacious season. Oh my goodness! So this is a group of just walking encyclopedias who participate in aggressive trivia, and I got to read from my list, Mr. President, and because it's just so amazing. So they have, I believe, 2 different teams or 3 different teams, like ABC or AB. The A team placed first in a multi-state tournament and dominated so hard that one score, and you can't make this up, was 660 to 5. Wow! And the freshman team, which competed at Cornell, placing first, was from IHS that had a freshman team this year. It's the first ever freshman team in the Quiz Bowl, in the American Quiz Bowl, out of the whole nation to beat multi-grade level teams, making history again. The B team of the Brain team went in to qualify for nationals. The A team won a $3,000 grand prize at a TC3 competition. The team is now listed at the high school American Quiz Bowl Hall of Fame. So what a beautiful, beautiful season the Brain team has had. The ski club has concluded. Unfortunately, they only got to go 6 times due to this weather, but they still had a blast. They still dominated the slopes. The Greek Peak is thanked because they gave them free jackets. Awesome. The radiant readers of the book club are reflecting deeply on Toni Morrison's Beloved, a book that has affected them deeply. They will soon venture on to yet another impactful work. The Ithaca High School French Club students, and this is another students taking initiative, and it turns out to be this great thing, took initiative to organize a trip to New York City that Mr. Powers and Madame Bowman went as chaperones. This last Saturday, they went to the Museum of Natural History and saw a Cirque Dole. Okay.
It's French.
Yes, it's French. And they saw that, they loved it, and now they can honestly say, magnifique. Now, we see on the periodicals, and Dr. Wazilu and I are very passionate about this issue. We are indeed. We are indeed. You see, okay, newspapers, magazines, TV, internet, Ukraine. What does this mean? Oh, something's happening there. Some know more than others, some don't. Well, all this stuff, and everybody at the board knows that makes the news, gets to Ithaca High School. Ithaca High School takes and does beautiful things with it. And the Ukraine, we've had great discussions through our international club, again, student initiated, to really explain what is going on there, what's at risk, how pivotal this is, things in the social studies department, and just students talking to one another. So it's really, really great to be informed. And in such a big world issue, you know, that's getting so much attention, it's great to have these discussions at the high school. And I'm glad we're having them. And that's all for tonight.
Thanks, Connor. I got a bunch of stuff signed, so that was great. Go ahead, Ned.
All right. I'm not sure how I can follow that.
No need to, Ned. Just go ahead. Tell them what's going on at LACS.
So the LACS Middle East debates began today with opening speeches as each character in a sophomore and junior interdisciplinary English social studies class took on the role of a leader in the Middle East. And they will be continuing tomorrow from 9:10 to 10:40, and then after school from 4 o'clock to 5:30. All the students will be debating in character, and then those will conclude on Friday from 9:10 to 10:40 with voting on proposals and closing speeches. And that's always a very, very cool experience to see how much students have prepared. The LACS food and gardening class is selling seeds in order to benefit the school garden, and that's something that we've been working on for a couple of years, but has never really taken off the way we hoped it would. The third cycle is coming to an end, and as the fourth cycle begins, all students at ACS will be beginning to meet with their trip groups to prepare for spring trips towards the end of the year. And that's very exciting also because I hear Connor Coots will be joining one of the spring trips this year. And I think that's a great thing because students at ACS, like myself, take classes at Ithaca High School, but there's not a lot from Ithaca High School that experience ACS, so I'm kind of looking forward to that, and hopefully that'll be fun. The seniors are working on the anti-bias project, which is a graduation requirement. Everyone, I've talked to a number of people who are hoping that Dr. Brown will return to follow up his talk about technology, and I believe you are planning that, so people are looking forward to it. And that is all.
Thanks for that. Any board responses at this time? Go ahead, bro.
Everybody was here about the budget. I'm glad to see it. We've had nobody here the last couple of years, so it's kind of nice to have some input. I hope you've all emailed the governor's office. I hope you've all emailed your state senator's office, and I hope you've all emailed the assemblyperson's office. We're going to be talking tonight about the budget and how we're impacted by the state aid and not getting state aid. You're going to be here to hear what we're going to ask the local taxpayers to do, but you know we're not getting any help from the state, and if you're not protesting with the state, you're not helping us. We need you to be working on your state senator and your state assembly person concerning the budget. If all you want to do is come here, all you're doing is pressing your neighbors to pay more property taxes. And I prefer you did a little of both and had a little press on the state as well to get more state aid. Right now, the proposal for us from the governor is for a less than 1% increase in aid. Less than a quarter of 1% increase in state aid. So if you're concerned about the budget, I hope you've been concerned for the last month and have been pressing your legislators.
We'll get to the budget in a second, but the gap, Brad mentioned the gap elimination adjustment for the Ithaca City School District this year. That's $3.2 million so far. For us to replace that at the local level, that's a 4.24% tax levy increase. So just to replace what the state is supposed to give us in our state aid run locally, that means we have to come up with a tax levy increase of 4.24, regardless of anything else that we wish to do, anything else, any programming that we want to continue the progress that we see throughout the district. So that is, so we appreciate obviously everyone being here, and certainly we're going to have conversations in a few minutes. Any elder, go ahead.
Also want to thank the teachers for coming. There's some of you I haven't seen or met yet. I find that impossible to believe because I enjoy spending time in classes and seeing what you guys do. So the tone seems different even with you guys in the room. I mean, I'm only on the board 5 years, and I remember a time when it just felt like we were about to get jumped. So you know the contract we just signed. You know the 4.44%. You are hyper aware of the professional development that's been coming. This is a pretty good time to be a teacher in the Ithaca City School District. So I want to keep that in our minds, and hopefully you'll keep that in your minds. And this artificial distinction between teachers and administrators, I know I'm personally past that. There's no zero-sum game here. Right? I feel when two parents come and say the things that follow, and I forgot your first name.
Patty.
What?
Patty.
Patty. The things you're saying, that's not why I'm sitting here not getting paid. Right? It's actually the exact opposite. To put structures in place and to hire the right people so that we don't have to hear those stories. And in my time on the board, those stories have decreased exponentially. That means nothing to you as two parents who've gone through and had to pull your children out of the district, which hurts me as well. But if you take anything away from this that's somehow positive, understand that it's two of you tonight, right? And that's a significant difference from when I joined the board as well. To say administrators don't play a role in balancing out those equations, and that teachers and teaching assistants or aides can do this all alone, I'm not playing that game.
That's not what I said.
Not you, not the two of you necessarily, but administrators play a role in this district. Administrators play a significant role when it comes to restorative justice.
Not when they don't handle it. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but when they don't handle it,
you've had your opportunity to speak. This is an opportunity.
So I don't have an opportunity.
This is an opportunity for the board to make responses. There's no back and forth.
Oh, lovely.
And I'm happy to talk to you afterwards. It's not, like I said, I'm not trying to be pejorative. I'm just trying to make a point that the people we hire in administrative roles are critically positioned to prevent situations with children from spiraling out of control. So I don't want to make this budget session even seem like it's an us against them. There's no one at this table who's anti-teacher. That's evidenced by what we've actually done in conversations with your leader and in conversations around this table. So, you know, as we move forward, if the finances continue to pinch us, obviously labor is by far the largest part of our budget equation. I think that that's going to be impacted in an environment of diminishing economic returns. It's just not rational and it's not adult, right? So you have an elected leader. Adam knows all of our numbers. We've worked with him to move this ball forward, and I'm going to leave it at that. There's no zero-sum game. You're not looking at a group of people who don't like teachers.
Very good. Well, no other board responses. We'll move on. We're all good. And consent agenda.
I'll move the consent.
Second.
Sent by Pat. Any questions regarding any of the items? There are extensive.
Adam brought up, thank you, the grant from the NEA that was in there. There was also, seems like it's almost every consent now, transferred from IPEI to the school district there. I don't know, everything else, there were one of the leases with OCM on technology is there, and then what else? Gym floor. The replacement of the 50-year-old gym floor at Ithaca High School will happen this summer. So that's on there, and to let the contract on there.
And funds for that are not coming out of the operating budget?
Nope, those are actually from the 2007 bond.
So we're still working on using that bond to the best advantage, and certainly the floor, it's time, and extensively damaged by a water leak, but now that will be renovated this summer, as soon as we vote on it. Any other questions, comments? All in favor? That will be everyone, the 5 of us that are here, not counting Bob because he's not. Anyway, so Dr. Brown, we're through our consent agenda and on to the superintendent's report.
All of a sudden, this has become my favorite part of the meeting because I'm inviting friends to do much of what I'm going to do. Plus, I'm talking more later. So, with that, I'm going to turn it over to David Brown in the audience someplace. David and Carrie, who have some news to share, special news, and some student work to share.
Yes. Very good.
Dr. Brown and I talked early in the year about bringing some performances throughout the year for board meetings. It took us a while to set those all up. And I reached out to our art teachers, our visual art teachers. It's kind of a little bit more difficult to do performances. Carrie Burke from Caroline has this great idea for a performance. She's going to show you the process that went through making the mural at Caroline. Before you do that, I would like to make an announcement. It's going to be official tomorrow, but for the second consecutive year, the National Association for Music Makers has announced that the Ithaca City Schools is one of the top schools in the nation for music education for the second year in a row.
All right. Hello, everyone. With me tonight, I have 2 students, Miles Lealy and Emma Liacino, who are going to share a little bit about what's happening at Caroline in our Farm to Table mural. Each year, I look to create a mural that relates to the Common Core, and this year, I look to create a mural that included kindergarten, actually pre-K, all the way to 5th grade, and it's aligned to the next generation science standards. And so, on this slide, I have a couple images that I'm going to show you. So, when we launched the Farm to Table project, we had an assembly where farmers came in and talked about how animals grow, how plants grow on a farm, and how those things come to our table. And so throughout the whole process, students had the opportunity to come up with ideas of things that should be included in a farm-to-table mural. So they went back to their classroom, and each grade level had a science standard that they had to focus on, and some key questions for those. So during this presentation, we're going to share some things that first grade and some things that fourth graders were focusing on. So for first graders, Miles, Neely, hold up your artwork. We were focusing on adaptations, specifically of chickens. And so all first graders got to do observational drawings of live chickens that we brought into school. We talked about how they use their beaks, their feet, and why each feature of a chicken was important. And so students were really excited and engaged about it. They learned about different colored eggs from chickens. And actually during our observational drawings, one of the chickens laid an egg. So it was actually really exciting. I couldn't believe it. Some of the kids started to draw eggs, and I said, "No, there's no eggs in there." And out popped some eggs. So I have a podcast from first grade of what they had learned this year. Volume should be on. All right. It's going to be a little loud.
Greetings from Miss Stranger's first grade class. Today we'll be talking about chickens. Hi, my name is Daniel. Hi, my name is Kennedy. Hi, my name is Nelia, so let's get started. Someone had bring live chickens to school. We need to learn something about chickens. I learned about chickens lose their feathers and grow back new ones, and they learn about hens lay eggs. When those eggs hatch, they're baby chicks. I learned that different kinds of chickens lay different colors of eggs. Chickens don't have teeth or a tongue, so they peck at rocks and dirt to digest their food. I learned about chickens from a book. At night, the farmer puts the hens in a chicken coop. A chicken coop, foxes cannot get the chickens when they're in the chicken coop. Well, that's all the facts we have time to share. To our podcast.
So this is just a sneak peek at what first grade is doing within the classrooms, the art room, and through integration of the mural project. They're also researching in the library as well. And Anna Chapman, our fourth grade extraordinaire teacher, is going to share a little bit about what fourth graders are working on through trout.
So Ms. Burke and I, from the beginning of the year, knew that we wanted to work on scientific illustrations of some sort. Can you hold this one? Can you hold this one? So we decided that since the fourth grade classroom has a tank full of brown trout, we'd focus on brown trout. So Ms. Burke taught the kids how to make scientific illustrations. This is like a first draft. And critique each other's work with really specific feedback. So they made a draft, got critiqued, made a second draft, got critiqued, and then made a final draft. And this is from a student in our class named Caden. When I was talking to him today, I was asking him if I could share this work, and I said, "So what did you learn from this?" And he said, "Well, how to draw better." And I said, "Okay, good. Anything else?" And he said, "Well," he pointed to this, and I said, "Well, what about that?" And he said, "Well, that told me how to draw better." So then we took what we learned from our scientific illustrations and applied it to a research project we were doing all about trout. And each group had a different trout topic. So Emma, can you tell us about your trout topic and what you drew?
My topic was anatomy, and I did an internal anatomy diagram of the trout.
Beautiful. And then we took it and we turned it into a book using a really great Apple iPad, where we were able to snap a photo of our illustration and put it right in. And so this is going to be published pretty soon as a book. And it was really nice because we had a lot of time with Ms. Burke through our integration to really tie in reading, writing, science, and art. And then we took our illustrations and put them right on the farm-to-table mural because everything that we did fit right in with kind of our local environment and what they were drawing on there. That's it.
Sorry, please again.
That's great. And real life farmers coming in and farming.
Yeah.
There's real life farmers.
They actually pulled some cheese too.
So, again, thank you, David. Thank you, Carrie, for
Thank you. Sorry.
and my ongoing attempt to keep up the promise. That's all for tonight. And that.
Very good, Dr. Brown. And when in doubt, bring out the little kids and animals. And I guess, Dr. Brown, we're, well, it's kind of cut off here, but on to school district business. And Dr. Brown, I guess it is springtime, Dr. Brown, and it's in the spring on a Tuesday night, we talk about budget. And Dr. Brown, I think that's where we are right now.
All right. Well, I think we're all set. It's going to be difficult to see this, but what I'm sharing right now and what we'll share later is all in the public Dropbox. Some things have already been there, but we put the presentation and slides and images that we're going to share here in the Dropbox. So if you have a device or if you're at home, you can follow along with what we're talking about. And if we may, I want to frame some things first in response to, I've received thousands of emails just about budget in the last week and a half. So tonight, I'm hoping to respond to some of the questions ahead of time. And I'm sure we'll receive thousands tomorrow and in the coming weeks as we roll out some more details today. But as with every email, every tweet, every phone call, I and my staff return them. And I'm looking around the room at hundreds of folks who, if you haven't gotten a response back in 24 hours, if you sent something to me, let me know. And I've heard some other comments, but I do get back to folks. And tonight, this presentation is in response to what folks have been sending to me already. The theme, and you're going to hear this often tonight, investing in a way to meet the needs of our learners. That's what the continuous improvement process, budget process is for us. And if we can move through here, we're doing what we do with the continuous improvement process in our district to achieve our vision of 6,000 plus thinkers. And speaking of quantitative and qualitative data, we put that vision statement out 2 years ago now. And when putting it out there, we didn't have much qualitative and quantitative information to show what does it look like when you're achieving that kind of a vision statement, which is bold. Now we have that. These are our headlines. Less people are recognizing us for this stuff, and they should. We should be proud of it and not apologizing for it. We're increasing graduation rates exponentially. When I started my tenure here, we were at a 78% graduation rate. And in the coming weeks and months, we're going to be announcing close to a 90, if not above a 90% graduation rate for the district. That's very significant. Closing achievement gaps across the board while raising standards, implementing the Common Core. While other districts are, their achievement is going down or gaps are increasing, ours have been closing. The special education identification rates, one of the things that I heard much about in my first weeks on the job, and how our rate was way above the state average. And now we're well below the state average. We can go on and on. Decreased discipline, attendance is up, discipline's down. Every quantitative and qualitative measure that we track, which many we're tracking most recently because we're looking for excellence in addition to test scores. Every quantitative and qualitative indicator we track, we've seen significant improvements. And that's because of our continuous improvement process, which is informed and supported by our community and our budget. One of the questions I've received is, how did we get here? If you can go, and I'm going to try my best briefly, because we've done this before. The state aid picture, the revenue picture for the Ithaca City School District. And what I have, and this again is online, we have our trend data from 2013, 2014, and to 2014, 2015. What's the difference in state aid, other revenue sources? And you see we're expecting a revenue of $108 million, $108.5 million in revenue as of today. That includes a state aid increase of about $150,000. I think a 0.25% state aid increase. We're going to get to some other indicators that are impacting the budget as well. We're going to talk about fund balance and reserve. We're not using as much fund balance going forward. We'll talk about why that is. This property tax levy cap number, 75 million, that is because of a formula that we all know of as the property tax cap. But revenue is at 108, expected revenue is $108.5 million. Our current operating budget is at 111. In the current year, we're at $111 million. Funding cliff. I've been asked often over the last week, what is a funding cliff? So what's happening? We've done what the state has asked us to do. We've used our reserves efficiently and effectively to plug gaps, in addition to the federal stimulus monies. That was about $1.5 million in our district. We used that to fund gaps in 1 year. That money went away. Our reserves and fund balance, we've used those for the last 3 years aggressively, as we've been asked to do. We cannot use reserves and fund balances in the way we've used in the past. So this funding cliff that folks have been referring to, and I'm referring to, are coming because what we've been asked to do, use federal stimulus money to plug gaps and use our reserves to plug gaps. We've done. We cannot do those any longer. At the same time, we've been told that GA will go away 3 years ago. Gap elimination adjustment has been referred to already. Mr. Grady referred to that $3.5 million in the next year. $21 million will fly over 4 years. So $21 million that should have come into the city school district won't be coming if the gap elimination adjustment does not go away. That's a significant shift. We plugged that hole in the past years using fund balance, reserves, and federal stimulus money. The governor's budget, we saw the state aid increase. That's part of the governor's proposal. The tax cap for us this year, Amanda, again, you have this number, remember, as 2.42.
2% increase of the levy from last year to this year.
Of the levy from last year to this year, which will look like that $75 million. So we talked about revenue. We talked about some of the formulas and budgets that are impacting us from the state level. Here's some fixed costs and things that are impacting our budget development process. Salaries in the district will go up $2.9 million, and anticipated going up $2.9 million from this year to next year. Healthcare costs, 1.9, TRS 1.8, ERS $267,000. And there's some other fixed costs, Social Security and workers' comp. And I put together some other images to show that this isn't all of a sudden happening to us. This is consistent with the trend. Here you see salary increases over the past 4 years, anticipated for next year, and the past 3 years of salary increases. Again, stuff is online. And we're anticipating salaries to be at around $52.8 million. Healthcare increases are increasing. TRS and ERS. Fixed costs for us, impacting the budget. This is different. This is coming from a tweet and an email from someone just the other day. They asked, and at the last meeting we shared in our various bargaining units, how many FTE do we have, and where have we gone in the past 3 years. And there was a rumor out there that we doubled the number of administrators while cutting the number of teachers in half. You see here where we are as far as total FTE across the organization over the past 3 years. In some areas we're rather flat. In teacher FTE we're up about 20 or so, and administrators we're up about 3. I don't know how you have a half of it here, but 3.5. Again, and this doesn't account for some of the unfunded mandates that have come down. APPR had an impact on administration. Hundreds of observations came down. The positions we've added here have taken on some of that added burden there. What we also added were the dollar amounts. Folks asked me to put down how much money, specifically how much money we're spending in each of these areas. And you'll see everything from 3.8 for the 34 administrators to the 11 million or so for the Employee Association. So again, in your drop box. Efficiencies. I've been asked again, what are efficiencies? And specifically, you've referred to technology as an efficiency. I'm going to get to that and why I refer to technology, because I know folks are struggling with that. Retirement incentives, you'll see, if you go back to this slide, you'll see a decrease in the total amount of dollars we spent on teachers from 1 year to the next. And that is in large part because of the retirement incentive. We had a lot of folks take that incentive, and that lowered our bottom line as far as total teacher salary dollars. But we've utilized 2 retirement incentives in the last 3 years, which created some cost savings for us. Utilities. We've moved to a more paperless environment. We've done some different things with printing. We've done some things with bus routing, gasoline, you name it. We've done our best to consolidate and be more efficient with utilities. We've been able to reduce those lines significantly over the years. Operational budget shifts, and I said it the last thing, I'll say it again, we've cut very deeply into our individual departments and school buildings' operational budgets, probably too deeply, but not much, very little discretionary, if any discretionary funds available to principals and department leaders when looking at their departmental budgets. Vacancy control, we look at every position as it comes open. It goes through a process. Does it slow down our hiring process at times? Yes, it does. But the positions that we fill We vetted, we put through a process, we vetted, and we know they're essential, and we filled them. In some cases, we haven't filled them, and we allocated those dollars to other areas. Transportation, we consolidated routes. Jim Ellis has been an outstanding director for us. He's done a great job of finding new efficiencies in our transportation department. Another question that was asked. And then technology. You're going to see later as we go through the budget how much we spend each year. If we stop purchasing technology next year, how much that would save us. It would save us $300,000 to foreshadow. But how can so much stuff be coming into the district? How can we be recognized for being a technology-savvy district and having so much going on with these new tools? We've been efficient with our technology dollars. We have not increased the technology line at all. In many ways, we're getting aid on stuff and we're saving some dollars. How are we doing that? I came into the district and what I heard from educators, particularly at Bell Sherman, that first day on the job, they walked up to me and said, we have no wireless access. What are you going to do about it? We have machines that are 10 years old or older. What are you going to do about it? We can't stream a video. Folks who are watching this meeting right now online, that couldn't happen 3 years ago in our district. So we had to do some things. We renegotiated our bandwidth contract. We went from having very little access to bandwidth to quadrupling it in year one. Now anyone can stream, surf the internet, share, do what they need to do because we increased our bandwidth and we saved money on that contract. Because of the 2007 bond, we were able to use monies that were allocated just for facility upgrades. We now have ubiquitous wireless coverage in all of our buildings and in our parking lots and playgrounds. We're one of the few communities in the country that provides that kind of access to young people and communities outside of the school building, in addition to being inside the building. We did that through a contract through the bond project, which was allocated just to improve our infrastructure. Interactive white spaces. I was told folks, we have a cart that we have to roll in when we have a lesson that needs a projector. That's not good in the 21st century as an educator who wants to teach. So what are you going to do about it? So we looked at what do we do as far as mounting projectors? Do we buy extra carts? We do buy more overhead projectors. We landed on the interactive white space, which we use our bond monies to purchase. And now every learning space in the district has an interactive white space. And we haven't even talked about our operational budget for technology yet, and we've made significant upgrades. Previously, our machine, we had no replacement cycle or distribution model in place. Our machines were 10 years old or older, and we had inequitable distribution across the district. Now we have a 2-to-1 ratio, and everything is 5 years old or less. Before, we were purchasing technology devices as a one-time purchase, and we weren't getting aid on them. So that $300,000 line item, you would get about $300,000 worth of stuff, and it was distributed via pilots and innovation grants. Now we've entered into lease agreements. We leverage both these aids, so our $300,000 turns into $1.2 million in buying power. And our leases are now on a 4-year lease. We get the equipment in immediately. It's new. And because of the aid that comes back 50 cents on every dollar, we're able to stay in a replacement cycle. So again, a flat budget line over my tenure, 3.5 years now, but yet we've gone to a 5-year-old or less replacement cycle, a distribution model that's at 2-to-1 across the district. That's why I refer to technology as an efficiency more so. And I heard just the other day I had spent $10 million on technology in the last 2 years, and that's why we were facing a budget crisis. If I had $10 million for technology, we'd be in trouble. I'm telling y'all right now. What we could do with it. Then we're getting into the question that came in about the tax levy versus tax rate, and where have we been across the past few years. Some folks said, I haven't seen much of an impact on my tax bills, and they were wondering what happened. But we have done what we've been asked to do. We stayed within acceptable property tax limits, as our governor said, to ask us to do. We did not go to the cap each year, and we'll show a slide in a minute to show how far we came from going to the cap. But 2.39% tax levy increase one year, 2.4 last year, a 2.7 tax levy increase. And on the rate, it looks like a 1.4% increase to one's bill in 1 year, a 0.32% increase in another, and last year 0.69. That's why you've seen a minimal impact to one's tax bill. A lot of folks happy about that with us because we kept the taxes low while also innovating and doing great stuff and moving achievement for our young people. So this is a new image. Here, this number here is the tax levy, what it could have been in previous years had we gone to the property tax cap, which we didn't do. 72.8 million in 1 year. Last year, 75. 6. We could have gone it, but we didn't. And instead, this board and our community, we lowered the tax levy. We went to a different place, and we saved our property tax paid. This number here represents what the property tax cap is for next year. And as you see, it doesn't take a genius to see that the property tax levy would be lower for next year based on the cap. So after, you know, what are the budget changes from year to year? I've shown you the fixed costs. Those things are going up each year. And here are the budgets from 2010 until what I'm proposing tonight, and we're going to get to that in a second, $113 million, which is, and it's not showing up very well here, that's about a 2.3% increase from year to year. Here it is. I wonder what happened to those things. That one, right? So when we try to be consistent, we've done what we've been asked to do. There's some other opportunities to provide feedback. We're going to do, again, the town hall conversation that we started last year. We had, what was the number I finally landed on, Danielle? Thousands of people called in for that conversation. We're going to do another one of those town hall conversations on April the 9th. We're trying to figure out how to do a video cast in addition to the phone call. I don't know if they're going to pull that off yet. The budget hearing, the public hearing is going to be on the 7th. The 6th, I'm going to correct that. Folks at home, that slide is incorrect. It's going to be May 6th. Then we're going to have the budget hearing, and the budget vote is on May 20th. May 20th is the vote. So opportunities to provide some feedback, but we'll be talking more about opportunities to provide some feedback. The Your Voice portal on our website, the listening survey, you can provide us feedback on any particular topic of interest, and we'll get back to you. Email, Twitter, you name it, but we're hoping to be as transparent and responsive as we can. So with that, Mr. Ainsley, we have a document. The board has asked us to prepare 3 scenarios. One is a tax cap of $108 something million, and then 2 other scenarios. One that I felt we could do to meet the needs of our learners, and then another one somewhat in between. And so we've done that. And we're going to put this document, and I know it's going to be new for our community because it's going to have some detail associated with it. We're going to walk through it, and we'll open the comments and questions about it. We're going to share with folks. I hope we have enough copies to share with folks in the room tonight. And we're just going to walk through the different scenarios and where they are. So if we can just take a pause, we'll hand these out. And it's hard.
So you're using paper, Dr.
I'm struggling with this piece, but
well, that's one way that everybody can take a look at it.
And once everyone has it, it's going to be easy to go to the worst scenario, so I'm going to ask folks not to, even though I know you will. If you can just hang on and go walk through the document, it'll make much more sense as we go through it.
I should have brought my glasses, Dr. Brown. This is bigger, though. It is bigger. It's not bad. So a fair amount of information, Dr. Brown. Stated why the rationale for the 108,500,000 budget. That is a budget that meets the tax levy limit calculation, as far as we are aware that Albany has set down from on high for this year. But the other numbers are obviously a higher number.
Sure. So we will walk through how this document is set up first, and then walk through the different scenarios, and we're going to start with the budget that we feel will meet the needs of our learners next year, 113. You'll see we separated according to administration, teachers, paraprofessional, other staff, and operating costs. And this is tough because no matter how, regardless of the budget amount, we're looking at staffing reductions. I've written about it, I've said that to folks. These are difficult conversations. If we were to simply roll over the budget and keep the existing staffing as we have today, which we've spent the last 3.5 years, as long as I've been here, building a district that we are very proud of. The things that we're doing here, I'm not excited about, not one of them. So people need to, I hope folks understand that. We aren't happy about doing any of this. If we get, in the best case scenario, we will find some efficiencies the next year, most likely do operational things, we will maintain our current level of staffing, and we keep the ball moving and continue the needle moving as far as achievement for young people. So everything on here is going to be difficult for us. So as I say, this best case scenario at 113 will meet the needs of our learners. That's tough for me to say, knowing I'm going to be seeing folks that I've recruited into the district who've done great jobs, folks who've done amazing work for the district for a while now, that may not be with us. I'm doing my best to lead through it, but that's a tough conversation to have. So I'm hoping folks will be appreciative and respectful. And even tonight, we won't be getting into too much identifiable information. We're going to be talking in broad strokes tonight, but knowing that there are going to be many more details shared later. At this 113,774,956, that is a budget that will be leaner, much leaner than where we are now. For the rollover budget of $119 million, we're looking at about $6.7 million in reallocation and reductions or elimination of existing staffing and operational costs. That has an impact, no matter how you cut. Yes, we're leaner, but that kind of a reduction has an impact. But I'm confident that this is a budget that we can put in front of our community and in front of our young people that will be supportive, and we can continue to move our graduation rates up and continue to close achievement gaps and continue to do those things that we've been doing so far. With administration, and you'll see under each category, you'll see a percentage reduction for the total cost out of the general fund we spend or we spend on that particular category. So for administration, you saw we spent about $3.8 million total. We have 34 administrators in the district. When comparing our size to other districts, we're understaffed as far as the number of administrators, and particularly with some of the new mandates. So 34 administrators right now currently at about $3.8 million. And we're looking at this budget at about a 19% reduction in total dollars for administration. 19%. That's significant. And that's going to come from a combination of some central office reductions, to some things in technology, to human resources, and to a contract for communications. That human resource position is one that we've been advocating for and we haven't filled this year. And it's one we won't be filling going forward. It's one we all had determined was essential. Now I'm going to go through this rather quickly first. We're going to come back and have a deeper discussion about it. The teacher FTE, and I'll start with the professional development FTE. We've been proud about professional development efforts here, and it's been supported by an outstanding instructional coaching model. Release time, we've done quite a bit with PD here. We teach on special assignment. We will see a reduction to the instructional coaching model and teachers on special assignments going forward, and that's being accounted for with that number there. The support FTE throughout the document refers to special education and AIS. And this first year, as we mentioned at a meeting last month or 2 months ago, when we talked about special education improvement plan, we talked about how our number of students who have been identified with special education services has decreased significantly. So we knew we were going to need to accommodate that need, that shift with FTE reduction and reallocations anyway. And what you're seeing with that support FTE at the 113 level is large in part because of the shifts in student needs. AIS services is there as well, and you'll see that be persistent as we look at the other budgets. Elementary and secondary FTE, and I have the staff at the table tonight. They're going to be speaking to some of these specific areas. And so we'll start with elementary FTE. Dr. Lane, you want to talk about that just briefly at this first year?
Sure. That reduction includes two main parts. One is looking at class size at the elementary level. Our current class size, this is an average across the entire district. Our current class size for grades K through 5 is 18.5. And so we'd be looking to reduce that classroom teacher FTE by 5 FTEs. And we're in the process, the principals and I, in analyzing both enrollment data, class size numbers, and also we have kindergarten enrollment coming in the next few months to see where that would happen. That number also includes 4 pre-K classrooms. The one preface I'm going to give to pre-K, the pre-K conversation tonight is that Albany, Governor Cuomo have been talking rather frequently the last few months about increasing pre-K funding across the entire state. So while that's completely up in the air, and I do not have a crystal ball with that, we feel there's a strong chance that we would get targeted state aid towards increasing pre-K. And so our hope is if we receive that we'd be able to offset many of these reductions at pre-K with that additional state funding. So that covers the elementary FTE part.
And so the class size at the elementary level, 18.5 to 19.2
yes.
is what we will see the class size going to. Mr. Trumbull, Secretary, you want to speak briefly to that?
In the 113 budget, the secondary speaks to a couple of different acts. The first is what we're going to call leveling of staffing between Boyd and DeWitt. Both middle schools, sister schools as we call them, have comparable student populations. I believe Boyd has 26 more students than DeWitt does, but has 4 more FTE in terms of teachers. So we're going to level that between the 2 buildings. And then the other approach at the 113 is the reimagining of the graduation coach model. As you know, 2 years ago, Mr. Powers and his team built a graduation coach model that pulled graduation coaches out of the classrooms. This is going to look more like a teacher-based graduation model that folks are going to be back in the classrooms, establishing more relationships with students, but also be able to track their progress throughout the school day and actually broaden that. So that's going to be reimagined to a degree there. So that's really the focus of the secondary FTE at the 113 budget.
So art, music, and
just want to say something about the support staff. FTE kept in mind with special education, of course. We wanted to honor all students' IEPs. We also wanted to honor the value system laid out in the special ed improvement plan. Most of these proposed cuts would happen because of the classification rate that is decreased, but also absorbed through vacancies that we do not have to fill, and sort of a reallocation of FTEs across schools. The last thing we want to do is give the impression that we're going to not fulfill IEP requirements or write IEPs differently in order to make the math work. So I thought I needed to just clarify that.
Thank you.
Dr. Rob, Jason, can you just fill me in regarding just basic offerings at the high school at the 113 level? Are we looking at reductions in sections or?
Yeah, right now we're currently looking at what AIS offerings we have there. So there'll be some small reductions at the 113 level. You get deeper into section reduction in the 111 and 108 for sure.
Which we're not talking about yet, but I just want to be clear on the 113. Okay.
Art, music, PE staffing, and that's about at this first level. And David probably should have been at the table about it. That 113 budget, art, music, PE staffing. That's the integration. So we have art, music, integration level at the elementary level. That won't be in place next year, and that's 2.5 FTE there. So that would be a shift for us at the 113. Overall,
reserve FTE, no teachers in reserve.
No teachers in reserve, and we've had 4.
So you mean like 0 as in 0?
0.
Are we still talking elementary string programs, etc.?
Yeah, right now.
I mean, at the
113. Yeah.
Again, we're talking about what's in that budget compared to what maybe okay.
And before, I know you want to get through this before we move on. If I understand, even with the pre-K classrooms, there's a lot of conversation about universal pre-K, but that also means for students who are at a particular socioeconomic status. I would imagine that we'd be meeting our legal obligation for all students at the pre-K level. Or is that?
We would still maintain our 5 classes for students with significant special needs. We would be for sure meeting the number. I think it's 58 income eligible students through the Head Start grant that we get, and plus more students beyond that. So we would. this year we were able to get all students who applied who were up to 300% over the income poverty level. This would probably have us in like around 200, something like that. It all depends on who applies, but they'd probably be close to that.
If my understanding is correct, Matt, our pre-K program historically has been far more robust than typical in the state, or?
For sure. We have a very strong pre-K program, and when we analyze what other districts do, whether they're our neighbors or kind of like sized city districts, most offer half-day kinds of programs, and we offer a full-day program with certified staff, and so a program like that is expensive. The amount that we get from the state is not insignificant, but it nowhere near covers the cost of the entire program. But again, we're hopeful, not overly hopeful, but we're hopeful that we do get some increased state aid that's targeted just for pre-K.
Thanks,
thank you. Hi, after. So we've done administration, which is a 19% reduction in total cost. Teacher, 8%. And now we'll talk about paraprofessional, other staff, that category there. That first line, that $900,000 aides, assistants, and clerks, we're going to be adjusting across the district. So this includes clerks in the teacher library clerks. So at the elementary level, we're talking about not having library clerks at the elementary level. We're maintaining what we have at the secondary level. Right now we're moving away from the clerk position at the elementary level at 113. The aides and assistants, that's a combination of the pre-K shift that we're making. And you want to speak about the special education aides at 113?
Basically what we did when we looked at allocating paraprofessional FTE ESPs is of course accounting for students with that type of support on their IEP, making sure that buildings are staffed accordingly to that. In elementary schools, we also made sure that kindergarten classrooms, they were allocated at least enough FTE to have another para in there. And then we used a formula accounting for student enrollment, poverty, special programs such as ESOL, high-need schools that get more traffic regarding displaced homeless students, transient students, and so they will have a pool of aides and assistants to work with that they can allocate or assign duties based on what their schools need. We felt as though this was an opportunity to look at a more equitable distribution of our aides and assistants, and when cuts are made, it's about 30 ESPs K through 12, so this is accounting for pre-K in that 30 number. That we would also have a proportional reduction of aides and assistants. We felt as though that title was irrelevant. Both groups serve children, they serve our teachers, they serve our schools, and bring a lot to the table, and we thought it would be unfair to say we're going to reduce more aides and assistants or vice versa. So, simply aides are about 25% of our ESP pool, and assistants are about 75%. So we look to, when reductions are made, we will see that proportionally in the reductions as well.
Clerical, that number at 111 is representing primarily this building, central office staff, support staff. Substitutes, we're going to make some, we anticipate not having as many PD offerings, so which will lead to a reduction in the amount of substitutes we hope to have. That's the line we need to continue to look at, though, because that number is going up each year. And we see ourselves taking some money through incentives and through looking at PD differently, but again, something we need to continue to look at with substitutes. Summer school, at this level, we're just looking at a few slots, and probably a few class sizes that are a bit larger. So some larger class sizes in some schools, and some fewer slots. shifting over to some of these operating costs, and I won't go through all of them. Some that jump out, the contractual one at 393. The majority of that is the learning innovation line. We talked during last year's budget cycle about learning innovation and what we were doing. Elementary world language program, early college, high school, model classroom project. We added an additional pre-K classroom. We did several things there last year through that learning innovation grant line. We have partners that we have that access that particular line for special projects in our schools and in the community. That line will be eliminated next year. So learning innovation grant for a year will be on pause. Some of the things that we started, we'll pause. We may look at other grant opportunities or creative ways to do them moving forward, but the learning innovation grant lines won't be there for next year. The PD hourly, that isn't stipend, it's more of the, Bob, you want to speak to what that PD hourly line is? So folks know that it's not the contractual stipend.
Yeah, it's not the stipends, it's hourly rates that are paid for professional development. The stipends are untouched, they're contractual.
Equipment, we've had multiple requests for, yeah.
Doc, go through all of them. This is important information, please.
All right, cool. Utilities, again with electricity, and we want to name some other areas where it's saving on utilities.
So we look at the 3-year average. Obviously, this year is an odd year for utilities. Clearly, we've all have known about the rough winter, right? So, again, we've tried to look for places in the budget where we might not have spent every dollar on normal years. And so this was one area that we felt that we could be able to go to try to find a contribution to some of the cuts that need to be made.
Equipment purchases, requests for new equipment, everything from cafeteria tables to chairs. We are putting on hold for a year. That's the equipment piece. You want to talk about tax and insurance, please?
Sure. So as our bond payments shift every year, you know, those payments will shift down, and so this is an adjustment to any kind of principal and ban on the bans and interest on those.
Insurance. Similar shift.
And again, the same thing with insurance. The companies that we've been working with, we've been able to work with sort of our intermediary and try to make some reductions while still keeping a high level of insurance to cover us for risk. However, there were abilities to be able to trim back some things and accrue some savings in that way.
Similar with postage and printing. The internal auditor, we've been able to renegotiate contract. The grad credits, Bob?
The grad credits, we're just looking back at a 3 to 5 year window, and we can reduce that amount by the history that we paid out.
So trend data. Not stopping anything, but we've been able to shift it. The athletics ones, again, we're touching every part of the organization in all of these budgets, but the athletic, we moved into the budget in the previous years monies to purchase modified uniforms, and they look good. The young people have been happy. We will take a year off from purchasing modified uniforms and also finding some other efficiencies within the athletic department. But sports are all still in place, all the same programs we have today, but maybe some older uniforms for a year or two. And the school lunch transfer, just some adjustments that we've made.
Yeah, Denise is doing such a good job managing that program. I mean, we consulted together and we felt that's almost become sort of a standalone program. So this transfer, we're going to give that a try for this year to see if we can continue to have that standalone program without the help of the general fund monies to support that.
So as we've been saying for a month, all areas of the organization are going to be impacted when you're looking at these kind of budget shortfalls. And we try to be as thoughtful as we could be to maintain program offerings, maintain our momentum, but touch every area to be lean. And you see, we pretty much touched every area. We've gone through this budget line by line, and this is our best recommendation for you as far as the budget. Knowing what our revenue is, knowing it will have a tax levy impact, a tax rate impact, and what we think we can do moving forward. Knowing that this isn't best case scenario. We're going to have folks that aren't with us. We're going to be stopped. We're all going to be supporting certain classrooms and what we've done in the past. So we will have to think differently moving forward at the 113 level. One that I'm hoping that we as a community can rally around. And when we go through these budgets, we're going to have to be asking ourselves as we talk about these, what type of school district do we want? At the 113 level, I am saying to you, the numbers I've shared, the quantitative and qualitative data continues to move. From my experience and expertise as an educational leader, I think we can continue to move the needle with that 113 budget. But it's going to be tough, and it's going to require great educators in this room and great community supporting us. As we shift to these other budgets, and I'm saying to you tonight as a board and the community, it's going to be tougher. We will see data get flatter, most likely. We may see some negative impacts to our data in some of these other situations. And I'm not talking about the culture yet. I mean, I don't know if the culture in our community and in our schools are ready for what may be before us with the 111 and 108. But I wish to go through it for the community, for the board and the community anyway, because I have to. At the administrative level, we're adding some additional central office administrators. You're going to see much more of a hit to the administration later, but an additional position at the central administration in Tier 2 is 111. When moving over to the teacher FTE, Matt, you want to talk about the shifts we'll have to make at 111 for elementary?
Sure. One important thing to bear in mind about this budget is we decided to, that class size shift I talked about in the 113.7 budget, that class size shift we decided to hold in this budget. So we're not increasing elementary class sizes in this 111.9 budget. And when we talk about the last budget, you'll understand more why we decided to hold that. To make that increase, though, we changed the 4 pre-K classes to 7 that we'd be eliminating. That would allow us to have 9 left. Again, I'm just going to repeat this a few times tonight. We really hope to offset that number again with potential aid from the state that's targeted for pre-K. The other change we made was this would have elementary schools, every 2 elementary schools sharing a librarian, and that would get us to that number. To help offset that shift, we would be having elementary schools share a library clerk as well, so that someone would be working in the library at each elementary school every day at this line.
Second, professional development FTE, the shift between Tier 1 and Tier 2, we're adding some additional teachers on special assignments, so we're taking some additional hits to our professional development program that we spent so many years building up, and we're proud of. But that's what that shift. Would you add anything to that? Secondary FTE?
Yeah, in regards to the 111 budget, there's a few impacts school-wide. You're talking about increasing middle school class size from high 19s to about 23. And I spoke earlier about the leveling between the 2 sister middle schools. You're talking about not offering all the sections that we need at IHS, both elective and APs for sure. Talking to Principal Powers this morning, looking at data, and IHS is well ahead of the curve in terms of trying to establish what student needs are going into the next school year, and that's where we're working from to see where the need is. Some sections where students have asked to be a part of it, 105 students, which would warrant 4 to 5 sections. We might be offering 2 sections, and we're going to need to look at where students then go. For those days, we don't want to be in a situation where we're offering content area classes versus study hall or free time. So we do have that data, and we're calling to that data now. We're also talking about in the middle schools, I mentioned middle school class sizes from 20 to 23. We're also talking about any non-mandated courses through the state probably aren't going to run at our middle schools. We're also taking a look at our middle school principals, the exact seat time that the students are sitting for particular classes. So if we're exceeding those, then we may be reducing sections in those classes as well. We're also taking a look at classes that the students are taking in LACS that could maybe possibly take at IHS, mathematics classes, science classes, if those are viable options in terms of section reductions at the school. So you see now that in that 111 you begin to impact programming and offerings at the 4 secondary schools.
this art and music PE adjustment. David, you still here? You want to just speak briefly to that second level?
Yes, in 113, there really isn't an impact through physical education, but physical education will have a little bit more of a reduction at the 111. We're also going to look at looping and see if we can utilize the staff in different places to make sure that we serve children the best that we can, trying to keep all the programs intact. At the 113, what I did want to say is that student seat time will not be decreased. Once the integration isn't there, we will make sure that still the amount of time they get art and music will not be decreased, and we'll move forward the best that we can.
So, administration, we've gone through the teacher FTE at 111. The paraprofessional staff, that the changes there, that with aides, assistants, and clerks, that is accounting for the additional shifts in pre-K that we mentioned earlier. The summer school piece, we're at this level, we're providing summer school to our ESOL students and our special education students only. So AIS summer school won't be in place. The custodial maintenance and transportation, a place where we had some significant reductions 4 or 5 years ago, and we're still attempting to recover from those. We would look to find some additional efficiencies there at that level. We don't know for sure what that looks like, but we would have to probably reimagine our custodial model and some of our grounds approach to things. What you see over here to the right, and I foreshadowed this earlier, if we stop purchasing technology for a year, that's what it would cost us. It's not $2 million, not $3 million, it's $300,000. And that has a significant impact because this is one of the few aidable lines that we have here. So that $300,000 is more like $150,000 savings when we think about what we did able to generate. But what that does is it takes us off of our distribution and replacement cycle. And the machines get older and we have inequitable distribution immediately. What I'm also fearful of is, I've been doing technology work a long time. It's always hard to get technology dollars into a budget. So if we're facing tough decisions in year 2 and 3, I'm anticipating a tough time getting that money back. So I wouldn't know when we'd be able to purchase technology devices again. 1 year off of the cycle we're on will have a significant impact for our organization. 2 and 3, we'd be back to where we were 5 years ago. And that was a place that our community and our staff wasn't happy with. But again, at this level, that $300,000 item is on the table for many reasons, but not one I'm happy about at all. The extended day, so at this 111 budget, and when we talk about 108, we start to talk about the things we know increase achievement for our young people and helps us build relationships, all things that play into our mission and vision. We dip into the money that we have for extended day opportunities, the hourly rates. We have outstanding educators work with young people after school every day on academic and co-curricular opportunities. From my perspective, what we've seen with our young people who are reading on grade level and our graduation rates are in direct correlation to what we do before and after school. At this level, that starts to be impacted, and significantly already at Tier 2, and even more so at the 108 number. And everything else is a continuation from the 113 as far as the reduction in the reallocation. So that's the 111 budget. Any quick questions, and now let's get into the 108, then we can go through it all. This 108 budget, and what we're going to go through and what you see on paper is our best guess for what we could do. Frankly and honestly, we'd be reimagining the district at this level. At the tax cap budget, we would have to, as the dust settled in May and June, we'd be reimagining what we do. For example, how do we provide administrative support for our schools? With the thousands of observations that must be done by state law, we have no central administration at 108. We'd have what you're mandated to have as far as a superintendent, and not much left. And we'd also be impacting the building administration as well, which we tried very hard to protect the classroom and to protect buildings. At this level, when you're reducing 47% of your cost for administration, you have principals left only. And right now we have instructional leaders in our buildings. And I fear, well, I know they would become managers at best at this level. Without APs, without central support, without being able to pick up the phone, and just thinking about the number of emails and calls and advocacy work that we do at the central level every day without the number of administrators. We also feed 6,000 plus young people every day, and we drive tens of thousands of miles. These are things in an organization of our size of $100+ million to think we do all that every day with 34 administrators, and then we're talking about doing it with probably 10 total, and they're in the buildings, that would be difficult. So I'm saying to the board and the community, at 108, we be reimagining what administration is. I know some folks are just cut administration, cut it all, and 47 is something you probably can do, but I would like to caution us to think more about what that means. At the teacher level, elementary, secondary, and support FTE, Matt, you want to talk about what you foreshadowed earlier as far as what will happen at the 108 level?
Sure. The increase at the elementary level would be an additional 7 FTE. That would be targeted for a class size increase. That on average would take us up to 20.4. We have 8 elementary schools. They're all, in the grand scheme of things, they're all fairly small. And so it isn't just that every class just naturally adds a student. We'd be looking at some very complicated situations of, in some schools, teachers teaching like combination grade levels, like a first, second grade class or a second, third grade class, or in some cases, like a fourth or fifth grade class having way over the 20 average, like 24 or 25 students. So with the way we have our schools, that it's a hard one to do, but we don't have a lot of other places to go at this level either. So that would be something that that we would continue working on at the administrative level and the elementary leadership team, just to start exploring options of what that might look like.
Thank you, Dr. Lynn. Support FTE, this one.
This also would be a pretty deep cut. The SPED AIS positions in the first and second tier would remain flat. At this level, we would begin to dig into our mental health support staff that we've come to rely on quite a bit. Our social workers, guidance counselors, other support types of positions to support students.
Mr. Trump.
Yes, secondary level, 1085. I've given you the theme of middle school class sizes. Now you're talking 23 to 20, increasing from 23 to 25. And recognize when you build the secondary schedule with sections, the average being 25, very rarely do you hit the average 25. You either have 33 or 22, depending on the level of the classes. So that average is something we work for the class size part, but you do have those discrepancies. So that can be a bit misleading sometimes. We're also talking about reimagining teaming. Both our middle schools and Mr. Knight's done a nice job over the last few years to add staff at DeWitt to get a full complement of 2 teams at each grade level. And folks that have had children at the middle schools have appreciated teaming. At 1085, we're talking more about reimagining that teaming to look more like looping. So folks teaching 7th grade math and 8th grade math that would move with the children. We know that there are a lot of research district-wide. High-performing schools use looping quite effectively. That's something we have to seriously consider and take a look at. When it comes to the high school, I had mentioned before that we're talking about reductions in terms of the offerings at the high school. We do have data now that speaks to how many students have requested what classes. We're going to need to be very thoughtful in terms of what programming is reduced, if not eliminated. And frankly, we talk about sequencing for students graduating high school and seeking diplomas with distinction. Those get pretty complicated in terms of what courses lead into which and what are precursors for the highest level courses of which we as a community have expected our students, all students, to be engaged in. Not to mention, I mentioned earlier in the 111 budget that we're looking at what I'm calling simply duplication of classes offered at LACS and IHS, not to insinuate by any stretch that they're taught the same method, but that we'd have to look in transportation to see whether or not it's viable to have students continue to go back and forth between buildings. We already have some of that. The question is how much more, and ultimately what cost savings are we talking about. And when we're at the 1085 budget, we're also talking about all 4 schools really reworking their master schedules, because frankly we're talking now about the size of the reductions that we're talking about. We're talking about sharing a multitude of staff. When I came to Boynton 10 years ago, we had a couple staff that we shared with DeWitt, a couple we shared with, frankly, Fall Creek, we're talking much more of that. And the core secondary principals and myself really have to look at what this is going to look like and when we can offer particular courses given folks certification levels. So that's a kind of a broader impact at the secondary level.
This next highlight, we're one of the best music programs in the country for a reason. One of those headlines that our young people should be proud of and take earned. When we get to this level, we're talking about reimagining that elementary and middle school instrumental music program. And that, Mr. Brown's been thinking about what that will look like, and we're still working through it, but you may want to offer a couple of sound bites.
Yeah, that will change the face of our arts program. We would have to reduce to probably state-mandated requirements and try and loop our best to get our instrumental program to continue. To stop an instrumental program at the elementary level gives us maybe 2 to 3 years before we see that throughout our 6 through 12 program. So this kind of budget would be just a whole different vision of what the arts are, and something that I don't know what it would look like, and it will take a lot of work, but I can tell you right now we would not be one of the best school districts for music education because we just couldn't add that cut.
That would be unfortunate for young people. So those are the administrative shifts, the teacher shifts, and the paraprofessional, other staff, that aid assistant, those are the additional classrooms that you want to be put.
The aides and assistants K-12 remain the same, and as with the 111 budget and 108 budget, basically there are more pre-K and library clerk reductions.
The clerical support, I mean, we have very few administrators, so there would be less of a need for clerical support. That's what that shift looks like here. The custodial maintenance and transportation, we have a number there. We probably will be reimagining and looking to contract that, do something different as far as how we provide support for our buildings, the infrastructure needs. And that's the number we have.
Combining bus routes, and then probably some impact on the facilities because of all the decreasing staff and opportunities. We won't need all of the staff available to man things like after school. So we thought that we could maybe take some hits there.
Yeah. The club one, so at this level, we're looking at providing opportunity for the school day only. Co-curricular opportunities or extended opportunities for young people. We would have some varsity sports. Varsity sports will still be intact, and most JV sports. But at the modified level, we'd be moving away from modified sports, and we'd be providing this varsity and JV sports at high school. But all other intramural co-curricular opportunities that we do after school that are in addition to the school day, we'd be moving away from at that level. Because you see that cut there, clubs, and then in the next line you see the extended day number increased from the previous line. And then you also see the athletic shift as well, which would be where we would go for the modified sports as well. So a tough budget. It's hard to even talk through and to share that with our community. I haven't spent so many years working to meet the needs of our young people to talk about that budget. And again, we as a community, what we need to talk about what kind of school district we want. And I'm hoping that's what the conversation is tonight, is which one of these budgets to focus on for us, knowing the other implications that we're dealing with. Don't have much else to share other than this is difficult. Even at the 113 budget, again, we're talking about a great district, and we're having to make a significant shift going into next year, which will challenge us to think differently.
Questions? Go ahead, Troy. At what point in time will we be able to attach some potential tax levy increases, not the tax rate, tax levy increases to any of these budgets?
We're hoping by the next board meeting. We're hoping that there's a one-time budget. There's an on-time budget coming out of Albany, and that will give us the information we need to show what the tax levy and tax rate information will be.
So it'll be very difficult to give you any direction about which way to proceed without that piece of information.
Thank you. Well, I can give round numbers.
Yeah.
I mean, if the state,
assuming the number that we put
assuming the state does nothing, additional, whether it's pre-K, whether it's foundation aid, whether it's gap elimination, if they stay where they are, the 111.9, and this is round numbers, please don't hold us to it, it would be approximately a 6.9%. And if you went to the 113.7, you'd be 8.99%. I mean, just to give you a feel for levy, just to give you an idea how much the increase would be on the levy. Now the tax rate would be lower than that.
50% lower.
Yeah, what, 2.25, something
Yeah,
like
lower
that.
than those levy rates.
Than those levies, because we know that the tax base went up. You've all seen new construction and so forth, so you know there's new properties in town, so they'd be a little lower. But I mean, at the 108.5, the levy would be about 242, and we would expect, as we've done in the last few years, your tax rate would only go up about 0.4, in keeping with what we've done the last 3 years.
So assuming, I can still, thank you, right? So assuming the tax cap would be a 242, so that'd be a 108 budget. So anything above that, if the board chooses to proceed in that way, would require a super vote for the next election. What, 60% to pass the budget by?
Super majority.
Super majority vote, right? So even if we were at 2.42, we had a 4% tax levy increase proposed, that would still require a 60% voter approval of the budget.
Correct.
In order to pass.
Whether that's truly constitutional or not, that's a different.
Right.
That's a different lawsuit, different.
So at least according to these three-tiered scenarios, either the 111 or the 113 already puts us at a super vote for this upcoming May.
Or any number in between.
Or any number in between.
Unless the state comes through with, more aid than you think they might. I don't know. As you know, the discussions are all over the place.
Right.
Where it is, and as Matt has pointed out, we may be the beneficiary of a targeted aid on pre-K.
Something we already do.
Something we already do, but we may actually be the beneficiary of that kind of a targeted aid. We don't know.
And I'm sure at some point we'll go through these numbers. We've had these conversations over the past couple of years that a tax levy increase does not correlate or map directly onto a tax rate increase, and I know sometimes that confuses folks in terms of what numbers we're talking about. And so historically, at least for the past number of years, that our tax rate increase has always been significantly lower than our tax levy increase. So the actual money coming out of homeowners' pockets for their assessed home values, right, there we go, is different.
And John, we talked a meeting or so ago, during our processes over the last 4 years, we certainly talked about the tax levy limit, and it was our understanding, and frankly that was the rule, that if you did not use all your tax levy limit, you could carry that forward. And just pointed out again, Amanda, we found out in October of this year, of 2013, that no longer is doable. They took that away. So making decisions over the last few years, we thought we could bank some of that tax levy so we would have some flexibility going forward. Again, building budgets over a period of time when the economy of New York State, as the economy of the country, was at some risk. We were certainly a recession nationwide. The state budget was in distress. Governor Patterson first floated the gap elimination adjustment in 2010 and as an emergency measure. As I've said in the past, I find it, I have a hard argument to say that we are in an emergency situation in the state of New York. The economy is growing. Financial markets bottomed 5 years ago, March of 2009. That economy that drives New York City and drives revenues to New York State certainly has been on an upswing for the past 5 years. Probably not hiring as many people as they used to, not paying as many cash bonuses as they used to, which Brad and I have always talked about. You really need to pay cash bonuses so we can tax them, but that's that became a bad thing to do. But so what we've done over the last few years, frankly, is probably too good a job trying to insulate the students of the Ithaca City School District, certainly the community, of the impact of the gap elimination adjustment. As I stated in the beginning, merely to make up for that $3.2 million that the state is, through Governor Cuomo's budget, will scrape off and will claw back. That's over a 4% local tax levy just to replace that. So when we're talking about what is a reasonable tax levy locally to support a budget that is increasing, as we tried, not much over 2%. We talked about a 2% world. We talked about really reining in the expansion and growth of a budget. But to go negative, to go to a budget that is less than what our operating is this year. I went back to the audit. I'm looking back to 2000. I don't have really data from before then, but we have never gone out with a budget that was less than the year before. It was close a few times, but certainly there's been an increasing budget. And a lot of that has to do with, obviously, contracts, personnel, obviously what we expect in this future. Certainly the amount that we have contributed to the retirement system, I guess it was about 0.36%, and now it's 17% of the salaries. That's the number that I saw floating around. So that's probably about a $10 million difference or more, just on an annual basis that is going out just to meet the benefit needs of our employees that we are statutorily mandated to provide. And I'll start. Eldred and Sean.
There's a human side to this too. I mean, we're talking numbers. Everybody in Ithaca everyone in Ithaca has a PhD, right? So we all understand numbers. But there's a human side. Some of us around this table have gone above and beyond the call to develop things that would even further increase the excellence of this district. So we're way past the point where, again, as I said earlier, we can play a zero-sum game. Right? If you look at the numbers in the 3 tiers, at the lowest level, we're talking almost 3 times the number in cuts to administration as staff. 2 times in the other 2 tiers. So we're not sacrificing, we're not even contemplating sacrificing teachers so we can keep some top-heavy administrative scenario. This is, Brad said it best, we hope the state comes through with more money. I mean, I want to say they owe us, but I don't know how I can say this. The financial markets are back, and yet here we sit talking about being $9 million in a hole. So I don't really know what to say, to be honest, in that regard. But again, for those of you in leadership positions, especially leadership positions in your bargaining units, just come to the table with some respect and some good-ass ideas, right? Because we're going to need both if we're going to maintain what we all have aspired to maintain. Sean said it best years ago. Boy, were we all excited to get to the point where we could build the kind of school district we wanted for our kids. And now to see this even threatened and being undone, I don't have the words to adequately describe what it would mean to not have curriculums being aligned right now, right? To not have people working on transitions from elementary to middle and from middle to high school. To not have folks in classrooms helping teachers in a non-formalized and in a way that doesn't involve penalties, right? To expand the opportunities in the arts. To make sure the kids have freedom to get where they want and need to be, even by giving them things like bus passes. None of this is making us happy. I'm sure none of it is making you happy. Interesting thing about that slide, to Rob's point, there were several board members who were saying keep that second bar down, 1.5 and under 0.5%, 12-13, and I believe it's still under 1% in next year. We are actually trying to do it all. I think the time may have run out where we can actually continue to do that.
Go ahead, Sean.
I'm going to ask Dr. Brown this to help, particularly for our audience at home, but I also want folks to realize the fact that we've been transitioning for the past 3 years, at the very least, if not before then, towards a year-round budget process. And so I'm going to ask you to sort of explain some of the work that's gone into this and the different budget advisory councils above and beyond Finance and Facilities Committee, in which this becomes a year-round conversation for us. And so there's multiple ways in which folks can have their inputs. Some are much more formalized than others are much more informal. But I'll begin by inviting folks to attend any of our Finance and Facilities Committees where we look at our reserves, where we look at the potential of trying to find other streams of income, other forms of efficiencies. But I know that you and your team have been working in different ways as well. And so would you speak to us a little bit so I understand how some of this got put together as well?
It's a bit of a process, so I'm hoping I do it suggested. I may have some gaps in here. I'll go back to my first month on the job. We did a survey. That first year, we were hearing about closing schools and the $500 gap. And we did a budget survey. We still look at that data. The data that came back from that survey, that more folks took that survey that year than we've had vote in the past 4 elections. And what we heard was folks wanted us to protect class size and the classroom experience for young people. That was high on the list. And from what we put together, we've done our best work as far as our best thinking to protect class size and protect the classroom experience for young people as much as possible. Folks, the second thing on that list was protect the co-curricular opportunities, the music and the arts, the athletics, and the co-curricular opportunities. Not until the later days, the worst budgets here, worst budget scenarios, do we touch those areas. So I can go down, we had about 10 things, and we used that when we were making some decisions. We've been saying that the budget process is a continuous improvement process, which is year-round. I like to think, and I'm always open to feedback, we're very transparent. To put a document like this out there publicly, to going around to buildings and have, we just finished a listening and learning session most recently, where we outward in every building and every department. We talk to people constantly. And in every one of those sessions, I hear about what to do as far as resources and what to do more of and what to do less. I don't think people realize oftentimes that they're informing the budget process, but every time we are someplace in a public setting, small group, or one-on-one, it's informing decisions and the process. We now have launched one of the only districts in the country that has a Your Voice portal on our webpage, where people can go in and do a listening survey. And we're getting back to folks who just send anonymous emails and messages, compliments, suggestions, concerns, and feedback. We hear that as well. We've done community surveys. We did one this past spring where we looked at priorities and we got a sense of where folks think we are, what we need to do more of, what we need to do less of as far as our priorities. We've done multiple surveys. We talk to people often. We answer emails and phone calls. I'm still waiting for someone. We answer them within 24 hours. We get back to you about a concern or a question or a compliment. We do that. So it's been an ongoing process. I will say, myself and this team and the administrative team, the building level principals, we've been looking at this budget line by line. We haven't had much opportunity to go out and ask folks, what do you do with a $6 million deficit? What do you do with $11 million? Quite frankly, it would be a mess. We have had to make some decisions based on 3 years worth of qualitative and quantitative data that we received to make some of the decisions that are here. And I want the emails to come in. Some people aren't going to agree with these things. Leaders make the best decisions when you seek disagreement. So you're going to disagree with some of the things we have here. So let me know about it. But also offer a suggestion about what to do differently. As we said from the beginning, we knew this budget process would touch every part of the organization. We try to touch every part of the organization proportionately and in a way that we can continue to move forward. And even at the 108 budget, we've touched things in a way that we can probably rebound if thinking differently or if money's come back from the state. So I'm hoping I'm giving you some sense of the thinking, but I will say though, this last month or so, we've been close in rooms and working through some very specific information. But now we are open to public feedback and comments, one-on-one, through surveys, in public sessions like this.
So I just want to reiterate something that Brad said earlier, and I'm one that usually gives the state a break. I understand how dysfunctional all state bureaucracies are, and our state in particular, but I usually hold them accountable for what I want in terms of local access and local control of my education, and we're a community that funds at least 75 or upwards of 75 to 78% of our educational budget through our own local tax dollars. with that being said, things like the gap elimination adjustment has been a significant problem. And so I would recommend to folks to take Brad's advice and to contact state legislators and contact the governor's office. Here's an example where the budget has a significant impact. And we're talking about $3.2 million, $3.4 million for next year. You heard Rob say it. That's a direct 4% increase on the tax levy without us even talking about anything else. And so we find ourselves, and we're not the only district across the state. Our community leaders, folks may know in Ithaca most recently, the Tompkins County, I'm going to get the name wrong, Tompkins County Council of Governments, right? So both city, town, and county government got together to have a similar proposal to the state about the ways in which funds have been stopped coming into our community and all communities for that matter. But part of what we need to be doing is to let folks know at the state level. I'm not worried about the federal at this point in time, but at least statewide that we're facing some issues, much like all of our neighbors as well. So that's one thing that we can do as a community moving forward. We can definitely give our own ideas about how to try to negotiate and navigate this budget. And on top of that, simultaneously, is to make some phone calls and some emails and some letters to our state representatives.
We will post some of that information on our webpage as well. I get daily updates from the School Boards Association, and this last week has been tough to read those updates because there have been dozens of articles about school districts just like us. And
all saying the same thing.
What's been most depressing for me has been the young people and parents who are writing to say exactly what you're saying about what's happening at the state level, how this has been going on for many, many years, and how it's now coming to a head and it's hurting young people. And for me, you could take out some of the names I saw today and plug it into the city school district, and it would be the same story. But I think those editorial and opinion pieces have been effective, are being effective.
Well, we always like being different, Dr. Brown. We always thought we could figure it all out, and it's getting harder. Elder June.
Just one last small point for me. Micah Eller left, unfortunately, but she said something I think was just extraordinary tonight. It's one of the reasons why we sacrifice our time and energy. What she said was, everyone gets their Ivy League acceptance letters soon. Now, for those of us who have children who were not in that situation, which is, many could argue is a majority of kids at the high school, that statement might sound incredible, but she said it like it was standard operating procedure, and it is, and we want it to. But we also have to protect the interests of the kids who aren't in that situation. The mandate coming down from the federal government and the state is to do what? Make our children college and work ready. So I think it was Jason when you talked about having AP classes of 35 and 50 kids. I saw the eyes of our superstars. We don't want that either. But if there's going to be this kind of pain, it just has to be evenly distributed somehow. And we're doing the best we can under difficult circumstances.
Pat, do you have anything?
I just want to reiterate what other people have said in this meeting and the last meeting. No one at this table is happy with any of these budget scenarios, and we're trying to minimize the pain, and anything other than reducing to 108 is going to require 60% of the general community to come out and vote yes. And when you look at what we have done for the last 3 years, the commentary I'm getting is not, oh boy, you've saved us so much money, we're ready to push it in. I'm not hearing that from people because people, I don't know, maybe again, we did too good a job, and the combination of rising costs and reduced revenues and the stuff that Albany pulls with the gap elimination adjustment and taking away the tax cap that we could that we thought we could bank on is very painful. I want to commend our administrative leaders for trying to shield students, extracurriculars, and teachers as much as possible with these scenarios. We don't see the major pulling away from classes and enrichment and activities and athletics that used to happen in the past first thing out the door until the budget that no one wants to see happen. But in order for that not to happen, 60% or more of this community who votes has to support whatever we do. And our hands are tied by that. And I plan to work very hard to support the most we can do for our kids and our teachers. I had 2 kids go through this school district. They have had fabulous opportunities. It would pain me incredibly to have even 1 year's worth of kids miss out on all the wonderful things that our kids do, whether it's great athletics and music and art and theater and robotics and great teaching activities, chances to travel. And I would hate for them not to have the classes that will get them into college. I do a little work with college admissions. I read about 3,000 applications a year. I look at about 3,000 transcripts a year. I have a bit of knowledge on the subject. The bottom budget would be a disaster. The middle budget would be terrible. We could try to live with the top budget. But we are all constrained by fiscal reality.
Thanks, Pat. More comments right now? Dr. Brown, do you need Bragwood?
I don't know if I should kick the state again. You know, what I'm going to do is
play nice.
I'll play nice, but I'll say this: they're actually only 99% responsible. We've had a few other externals. You probably all missed the fact that the city instituted a sidewalk tax so that they could shift costs from their budget to our budget, and that's $60,000 to the school district to pay the sidewalk tax to the city of Ithaca. That's just a cost shifting from one taxing authority to another. And we also pay them for a civil service position, which we could get for free if they would release us from that civil service obligation. But due to the patronage involved in that, they won't let us do that. And then one of the other ones, it's been in the papers. We've been quiet about the relationship with Cornell University. We've not been protesting or leading anything. Last year, impacting our budget, Cornell reduced their contribution to the school district by 10%. They went from $500,000 to $450,000, and we understand they're going to stay at that level. That they're not going to go back up. So I'll only kick the state for 99%. There are other externals.
And we would add that Ithaca College stays. And Ithaca College contributes nothing. Just to point that out. But we're well aware of the efforts of the mayor and the town supervisor. Just to cut Cornell a little bit of break, I have stated that Savante would. If without Cornell and Ithaca College, Savante would be mayor of Watkins Glen without the racetrack. So our community is far different, and in many, many different ways because of the institutions that we have here. We have the lowest unemployment in the state, in Tompkins County. There's a lot of we are Ithaca because of who we are, and who we are is a lot of because we have two and three of the institutions, educational institutions. It's our business. It's what we do here. That's why Ithaca High School has always been such a dynamic place. Sean, back to the Ithaca Academy days. It's a prep school basically for kids that wanted to get into Cornell, but then eventually soon became the public school for the kids in this community. And we mean all the kids in this community. And we've been over this many times. People question why are taxes high here when they're so much lower in North Carolina or somewhere else? And of course, the culture here is that all kids come to our school, regardless of where you live in this community. You come to Ithaca High and you come to LACS for the opportunities. You go to Boynton and DeWitt. In many communities, you pay your property taxes and then you pull out your checkbook and you write a check for $8,000 to $10,000 to send your kid to a private Catholic school. Our Mario Cuomo's son went to Catholic schools. He's a Archbishop Molloy grad down in New York City and did not go to public school. But that costs his parent, that's about $8,000 a year. So and I would argue that the education that you can get at high school is superior to what Governor Cuomo received at his Catholic high school. He at least got into Fordham, so congratulations to Andrew. So our culture is different. And there's nothing wrong with Fordham, or anybody else, but it's so our culture has always been different. And frankly, when we were recruiting Dr. Brown, we had other very high-level superintendents that came in and said, as they toured our district, they said to me, because I was doing the tour, he says, "What's your competition?" And I said, "We are the competition. There is no private alternative. We send all our kids come together, and we fund it locally, and for the most part." But we do need a little help from the state from time to time, and frankly, to get out of our way so we can do what we do. But anything else about the budget right now, Dr. Brown? Or no?
Mr. Trumbull, I was wondering if you could talk about in the 108 budget, the challenging current diploma with distinction opportunities, and then I was wondering, Ms. Slossler, if you could talk about how that would impact college admissions.
Sure. So I think the constricture of the master schedule in terms of what might not be offered, or if we had to collapse sections, that some courses might only be offered in the fall or in the spring, or that you may not particular classes only offered a third period. Obviously, you're only in 1/3 period that you then have to select, or in fact, if we can't meet the needs of all the requests that you put in, that you are then unfortunately not in that particular class. The concern certainly is that you might not be able to fill it sequence. We haven't gone through that scenario yet, but certainly having coached and taught many children your age for a long, long time in this district and writing letters of recommendation, and our students, frankly, are at an advantage over many other communities when they arrive at someone like Dr. Waslow's door, and the first question, how many AP classes have you had, and what does your current level of rigor look like? And frankly, seeing the level of the graduation rates that we have for all of our students, and students coming back and saying that their college experience in their freshman year was easier than their last 2 years at high school, means something in terms of rigor. So it's those kind of things that we don't want to lose sight of, and that's for all children. So that's why I put that piece there. I hope that makes sense.
One of the things I've heard year after year in this community has been an attack on AP courses, as they are a waste of money, we can't afford it, they privilege certain people, they're not doing enough for other kids, and just talking from a college admissions perspective, we have actually, until very, very recently, not moved forward at all in increasing AP offerings, especially in the social sciences, like government and econ and psych and all these things that are now really, really commonplace throughout the country and throughout the world. So we have, as a community, stagnated and lost ground, and that has actually made students look less competitive on a national and global scale. I think that the image of AP courses as only for a few is misguided. I think we should be encouraging more kids from more diverse backgrounds, because even if you don't get a 4 or a 5, participating in that level of rigorous courses looks very good to lots and lots of schools, and I would hate to see that lost. I do not like budget discussions that pit one program against another program. Boy, don't cut that, cut this to the bone. I don't want to see that happen, but it would hurt our college-bound students not to have the opportunity to take these classes. And we cannot pretend otherwise. No one in this community should pretend otherwise. It will hurt.
Very good. Sean, go ahead.
I'll speak personally, though, no to that. I think there's probably very few folks on this table that will even really seriously consider a 108 budget, given the radical changes that it would mean to our program and the classroom impacts, particularly given the fact that almost every one of us has been in here. Well, I think Pat is probably the fewest years of serving on the board, but still that's at 3. Right.
I was very active in the PTA.
That's right. Prior to that, right. So this is my 5th year serving as a school board member, and I've spent 2 years deconstructing and critiquing and trying to find ways to shift the educational budget process, where we went from one that was about cut to one that was actually building a school district. And so to find ourselves here is a little disappointing. That we're back to a game where we're trying to think about what we can take away as opposed to what we can add. But with that given said, I think that we're all so committed to the programs and to our teachers and to our students that will probably be taking some of the more difficult decisions, if that makes sense, and then doing the work to be out in the community to have conversations about the value of education, not just in our community, but much more importantly to our young folks and what this would mean for us. So I understand the questions. We look at these things, I think they're put out there for perspective, but I just want folks to look, from my perspective, I can't even look at Tier 3, right? It's not even on my radar. So that's where I'll be headed over the next little bit. So if you want some direction, Doc.
That was it.
And I'm not telling you I'm at Tier 1, right? But I'm telling you I can't even look at Tier 3 and B and then feel good about my role in this position.
And just logistically, that's good information to know. And we still have to put this together. There's a document you must produce, and it takes weeks to do so. So having that kind of clarification helps us.
Go ahead, Ben.
Just a question about that, because again, the community has to be with this. But what would the difference be between this 108 budget and that dreaded phrase, the contingency budget?
I thought it was rope hair. We had to think about a contingency budget. It is about, we don't have an exact number.
106.
106.
You have to use the levy amount that you had from last year, the previous year, so that already puts us at a $2 million deficit. And then the board must decide what really is essential versus contingent, and then kind of decide.
But that also, we are also constrained a great deal by what we can't have and what we must cut.
That's right. That's right. It's very prescriptive. There's a formula that drives it. So they say the board gets to determine that really is a full statement, quite frankly.
We'd be reimagining the district even more so than we are at 108.
I've heard that word a lot too.
And to be fair, the board directed Dr. Brown to do the budget at the tax cap levy because we would have been remiss in our duties not to explore that option on behalf of the taxpayer and behalf of the public. We did have to know.
Well, sure, Pat. I mean, that's. We've looked at that number every year, and we have been able to be under that tax levy limit. And
a slight change from that, Rob. We've actually looked at a 0% tax levy increase every year, right? Partly at my request.
No, exactly. Right.
So this is the first year that we can't even consider that even as a possibility, because a 0% tax levy increase would also mean a 106 or 105 budget. Right?
No, exactly, Sean. You're right. We've always looked at multiple levels, and we appreciate the work that's been done and has gone into the product so far.
And selfishly, I think, thanks for bringing up the fact that you asked us to prepare this budget. It's tough. I'm going to be in classes tomorrow like I am every day. And when walking in our building, folks are going to see themselves in a 108 budget, a 111, and a 113. I'm still going to smile and be happy to be there with kids, and I'm hoping to be happy to be there with adults as well. I'm not happy about any of this, but at any scenario, I'm saying to the community and to the board and to the staff, I'm committed to being here and working through this. And we will do it. We've done, when we said we would raise graduation rates to 90+% in 2 years, close achievement gaps, raise attendance, and decrease different, people said I was crazy. In any one of these budgets, they're going to say we're crazy again about how we're going to continue to do what we do in these scenarios. And we will do it. It's just going to be much more difficult going forward.
Anything else right now? I mean, obviously we'll have opportunity to talk more about the budget and a lot more in a hopefully short period of time. We do have more work to do tonight, but we will take a quick break.
Just one more question.
Go ahead.
The process moving forward, just so folks can know, I mean, get a rough timeline of how we're going to be having this conversation.
Thank you. A couple things. We're hoping to get more information from the state, so we're prepared to bring before the board tax levy and tax rate information at the next meeting. That will be one thread. As I've been receiving already, and I'm sure we'll continue to receive feedback from the community, other folks will be prepared to frame some questions and some answers at the next meeting. So I'm anticipating a brief Q&A or answer or presentation, and then presenting what the tax levy and tax rate information looks like, and then continuing the conversation. So again, encouraging folks to reach out and give us your feedback.
Good. Are we good? And future meetings we'll have the full board with us, and then we'll have a full discussion. But at this point, we're going to take 5 minutes. We do have, apparently there's policies to get to, and a policy update.
Get your energy levels up. We're ready to roll.
Dealing with the calendar, Dr. Brown?
Yes. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you were looking at the computer. It's okay.
So, we've heard from the community, we've heard from our board, their concerns about the instructional days that we're missing because of this great winter impact. So we've been thinking about how can we get some additional time back for our young people. We've come up with a solution that's going to be cost neutral, where we can have young people in the buildings on the traditional ELA schooling days with grades 3 through 8 are at home and staff is on site. We're going to work with the BOCES, and Lynn Vanderwerf's here as well to give some more details. We're going to work with the BOCES that's doing regional schooling. What is that?
Vendor scoring.
Vendor scoring, I'm sorry. Vendor scoring that will take on scoring our assessments. And Lynn, you want to add some other details again before I mess up some more?
Sure, yeah. So what we're going to do is take advantage of a service that's being offered through OCM BOCES and CityRec, where they have partnered with a vendor, OSC, that's Long Island based, to basically outsource the scoring of our ELA exams this year. And Charlene Teskey, our testing coordinator, has been instrumental in making this all happen for us. So this will allow us to gain back that day of instruction for students in grades 3 through 8 who have traditionally had that scoring day off, where teachers were all off scoring tests. as well as eliminating the need to send additional teachers out to be trained as scoring leaders. So it really does bring back a lot of instructional time. Although the actual cost of the scoring is basically double what it costs us to do in-house, since it's run through BOCES, it's aidable, so we get more than 50% of that back, which makes it cost neutral in the end for us. So more instructional time, less focus on the state test, more focus on the teaching day-to-day.
Sounds like a win-win. Go ahead, Sean.
So given those scenarios, is this also a long-term thing that we're considering as well? I've heard different reactions from teachers about either they absolutely can't stand the day of grading and it's useless, and some who actually enjoy it because they learn more about their students. And so I know there's different ways that people go about it, but is this something we're considering as a district moving forward?
So I think this is definitely, we want to see how it goes this year with just ELA. The service is available for all subject areas, so we could leverage it for math and our New York State science test, so testing it out with one subject area. And speaking to kind of the mixed emotions around teachers around scoring, one thing, it can be a great professional development exercise to really look deeply at how student work is being evaluated. Unfortunately, as accountability has shifted in the state, teachers can't even score their own papers at this point, so it becomes less and less meaningful, I think, about the students you have in front of you. So something we can do is look at how do we provide those opportunities after to look at release questions, really to incorporate that professional development, even though we lose it.
Very good.
So this calendar, if that's anything possible, to represent that shift.
So that's April 25th?
Yeah.
Okay.
And forgive me for not knowing every vacation and everything. It's not a tag on at the beginning and the end of time off. It's just it's a Friday that kids should be in school.
And K through 2 and 9 through 12 students are already in school that day.
So it's really just, okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, perfect.
Yeah, we heard you loud and clear last week.
And May 23rd?
Oh, sorry.
You were what we said.
Is May 23rd a class day, or is that a day off?
It's a class day now. It was on the calendar as a snow day, contingency day.
I would have blanked it out here on this one too while I was changing it, just to make it clear.
That it's a regular day.
It's currently shaded. You see, to unshade it, you mean, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, now that we know, I understand when you did it in August, you didn't know, but now you know, I would make it clear that that's a class day.
Is that the only day that we'll be adding back to the calendar? May 23rd?
We're adding another day to which day?
Which is already passed. June 27th.
March 17th.
Yeah.
And June 27th.
We had that day already.
We already had that day.
Right.
Well, we will put something on our website to make sure everyone knows about this.
And update this calendar, please. If you're going to use this graphic, then I would do both of those. I would unshade both those dates.
Yep.
The resolution.
Unshade, is that a word?
Yeah.
Unshade, sure.
Why not?
The resolution just speaks to April 25th. We don't have to add the May date. It's just we're just going to unshade it. Right? Okay.
It's probably one of those words that Google will allow and Wikipedia won't.
So
I'll move the resolution as written here in our agenda. Sorry, Rob, I didn't know you were.
No, I was hoping and waiting.
Second.
I'll second that.
Yeah, second by Brad. Any other questions? We're all in favor? That's everyone? And we're going to move right on. There's a list of policies. I guess we'll get a short policy committee update now that Sean is back.
And the policy committee update will be extremely brief. We are still in the process of reviewing the entire policy book. We find ourselves currently in the 4,000 series. We've completed the 100 series, the 1,000 series, the 2,000 series, and the 3,000 series. The 4,000 series is all about students and curriculum. Most recently we had a couple of really great meetings with Dr. Bruce Jawa and Director Sheila Henry, taking a look at special education, policies 4321 through 4321.14. There are 15 policies within it that all directly address our special needs population, and as part of the continuous improvement plan that we had the update last month, we're going through each of those policies, and we've invited a number of community folks, parents, PTA, SEPTA, EILC to also participate in giving us feedback as we proceed down that path. So the board is aware and the community is aware. We're going to hold on to all all 14 of those policies and bring them to the board as a bunch because they all go together. And so while we've gotten the first 4 or 5, I think, so at least some conversation, some review, we're holding on to those until we have all 14. Beyond that, we'll continue through the rest of the 4,000 series, soon to be under the 5,000 series, and maybe by 2038 or somewhere we'll be through the entire policy book. But in some regards, we're making really good policy. Unlike what I think NISBA wanted us to do, which is adopt their policy book because they sent it to us. You know that we're Ithaca, and we want to go through every single policy and make sure that the language actually matches what we do here locally, not what always the state recommendation is, because oftentimes the policies or local policies are recommended and not federal mandates or state mandates. And so folks are willing to join us. We may have a policy committee meeting this Thursday. We'll get notice out as soon as possible sometime tomorrow. That may also be rescheduled due to some schedules for next week. And we'll keep plugging along and throwing policies on the agenda when and where we can. Perfect. Please join us. It's how the sausage is made, as we say. So, moving on.
Funny, we never say that in the meeting.
It was said last meeting. Before you got there.
I always thought that you never wanted to watch sausage.
No, well, and you don't want to be a part of the great, intellectual debates of policy committee meeting either, right? We prefer to rehash those all at the full board meeting. So let's try that right now. So I move.
We always appreciate that when the policy committee cannot agree on anyway.
And here we go. I move policy 3100, superintendent schools, for a first reading.
Second.
And I'll speak this policy briefly. This is something literally at my request or an idea that I had, that this policy, and we'll look at some other policies, sort of mandates that the superintendent of schools provide a state of the district address every year. We currently have a superintendent who does that in a number of different venues and communicates to the public. My concern is that to be writing policy not in preparation for any particular personality or person, but for a structure that far exceeds Dr. Brown's time here or any of our time here on the board. And if the superintendent is asked to give a state of the district address, should we not sort of indicate at the bare minimum what we think that state of the district address should include? And so that for me included some sort of report on our facilities, on our finances, and the state of our curriculum. And that's what's added here in the policy that you see here.
And then the sentence at the end that Seth objected to about on an emergency, the superintendent can make decisions. We just took it out.
Right.
The martial law thing.
Yeah. Right, okay. Even though the board has previously already adopted this policy, we decided that was a good move, and we didn't catch it before, so that sentence has been removed.
So Dr. Brown's hands would essentially be tied.
Figuratively. And then, right, the superintendent shall be accountable at the board, at all times to the board. Okay, I guess that reads okay.
It was the entering into contracts thing.
Right. All right. This is a first. It is a first reading, and we'll just keep passing this policy till we get it right. Is that okay?
I like it, Rob.
Okay, sounds good.
Everybody likes it, but it's come up twice, yeah.
And it is first reading, so we'll.
We do have to vote.
That's right. I forget our policy. All right. All in favor? That's everyone.
We'll see it for a second reading.
Okay.
Policy 4311.1 is display of the flag. We have also recently passed this policy. We are going back for some of the policies that were recently adopted, and the language that we changed from the last time that we looked at this policy was to rectify a situation where the previous policy said that only prior the death of former board members or students or employees were allowed for a flag to be flown at half-mast, or half-staff for that matter. We even had a legal opinion that half-mast and half-staff are the same thing. Didn't know that. That's why we asked the question. And we added the phrase that says that the superintendent or other persons as the superintendent approves. So if there are major community member folks across the state, folks across the nation that we feel that we want to honor by flying the flag at half-staff, the superintendent has the ability to make that approval for individual school buildings. Oh, God.
Did I move it already? I did not. I move policy 4311.1 display of the flag, and if you all don't mind, along with policy 4311.1-R, the regulation that goes along with that for a first reading.
I would second that.
Second by Pat. Any other questions? The state can, declare, all public buildings fly.
It says
it states that in the stipulation of the regulation that anytime the governor or the president, for that matter, makes those stipulations, then we must apply to it. We also have the additional discretion for anyone who may be local or the school district chooses.
Very good. And that's in the regs.
That is in the regs.
Yeah, I got you. Which I, of course, read, but I just forgot.
And I should make mention, Rob, for the public who's still watching us at home, that we also had to add language about September 11th Remembrance Day and POW MIA Recognition Day, all which are relatively new since the last time we passed this policy. Those are both federal regulations that are now reflected in our current policy.
Harbor Day.
A bunch of days that we didn't know.
Okay. Any other questions? Doesn't look like it. Move seconded. All in favor for the first reading? Thanks. And that's on to G, correct?
Yeah, so I move policy 4327, alternate instruction, and policy 4327-R, alternate instruction regulation for a first reading.
Second.
This is part of our general 4,000 policy review series. This policy deals with alternative and homebound instruction for students either on medical leave or students who have been suspended as a result of a superintendent's disciplinary hearing. And what alternate instruction or homebound instruction we provide for students. We did have some conversation at the policy committee, talking to some of the academic chiefs as well, and trying to make sure that what we have in policy matches what we do in practice. And this is the language as we have it currently, open for discussion.
And well, you moved the regulations as well, correct?
We can do one at a time if easier for folks.
No, that's fine. Just in the regulations, which I closed my.
Yep.
I closed my iPad. Did we talk about time factor? How quickly services have to be provided?
That's an excellent question.
We hear about sometimes there's a lag between. Okay, well I'm homebound, but the tutoring, the whatever, the alternative instruction doesn't start. I just didn't know what the time frame was.
The regulation does not speak to that at this point in time that I'm aware of. I'm looking at it again, but I don't recall us having that in the language. It's something that we can discuss in preparation for a second reading to have a conversation at the next policy meeting to look at that. I think it's a good idea to look at.
Well, the temporary illness is if they're prevented from attending school for a continuous period of 5 or more school days. So if they're out for a couple of days, nothing is put in place, and so I think it doesn't start right away. They need some kind of estimate, and the number of hours per day that they're entitled to is also in there. So it doesn't say lesser periods of time make up the missed homework, and then long-term, that would go to a Committee on Special Education or 504.
And you have disciplinary actions are included, correct, as well.
And disciplinary actions actually are mandated by the state. Whenever we suspend someone, there is a time frame, right? If I'm not mistaken, almost immediately.
Well,
not that you have to provide the opportunity for folks to meet.
You do, but then, so in practice,
yeah,
take a day or two to get an alternate instructor in connection with the family, because you got to be at home, you got to be in a public place.
Yep.
The guiding rule, though, is that they're entitled to 2 hours a day. So if they meet on that second or third day of suspension, they're entitled to 2 hours for each day. So it isn't 2 hours a day from the start. It's combined.
I see what you're saying.
So oftentimes students will continue to receive those once they're back in school as well.
Right.
Just 5 days.
It's something that we can we'll ask some additional questions and do some work on the next policy committee meeting as well.
Issue that I have heard in the past.
Good to know.
Heard of in the past.
Yeah.
Anything else regarding? Okay. Move seconded. All in favor? and that's for the first reading of the policy and the regulations.
Thank you all greatly.
Perfect. And we have one more resolution.
I'll move the resolution calling the 2014 annual district meeting and election.
Second.
And you can see the various sections, etc. Danielle, typically this is pretty straightforward, but I assume all the dates have been updated for this election season. But right. And we will we'll point out, it is listed here, the polling places still are at 12, the number 12. And obviously this is an opportunity not to have 12, but Danielle did provide some background on costs, etc., of our various opportunities to vote throughout our fairly large geographic district.
Well, and Danielle also discovered that because these are not partisan elections, she only needs 3 election inspectors at a voting site instead of 4. So not just a lowering of expense, but just it's also hard to find people to work the one day. So it makes that a little easier. So appreciate the work on that.
And to add to that too, I mean, one of the conversations that we've had briefly in finance facilities is that given some of the data and given some of the voter turnouts that we probably should have a conversation about our voting polls and voting places. And my recommendation would be to give folks at least as best we can about a year's notice. And so I don't know when we want to have that conversation, but if we think, for example, of one of our lowest performing or lowest return polls that we'd like to close, to begin having that conversation now in preparation for not having that poll be open for 2015, if that makes sense.
And once we have that conversation, I'm going to propose that we go to 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. instead of noon to 9 p.m. If we reduce the number of polling places
to make it,
I'd like to go with the longer hours. But we've got to talk about making that, whether we want to make that trade-off or not, because we do have those couple of polling places where we get less than 50.
That's right, 34, 32,
yeah.
Right. That's a good idea. 6 to, and we have, when we can go, we can't go shorter, we can go longer.
Exactly.
Great, I like that idea.
So do it as a trade-off sort of thing.
Some of the country.
I'd also point out that there's a second proposition as part of the election this year. There'll be a proposition, as we've done the last number of years, from the Capital Reserve for the acquisition of buses, and also a project up at South Hill. We've done the Aurora Street side of South Hill parking lots. The bus loop has not been done, so this will be, that's what the Hudson Street side will be, the bus loop there.
And the language does include the list of school buses, etc., that we're looking to replace this year.
It does, yeah. 2 30-passenger buses, 3 62-passenger buses, and 4 62-passenger buses with those small luggage compartments underneath.
So you can travel.
Musical instruments, athletic equipment, whatever.
And the document in the Dropbox has lines through the multifunction school activity bus that has been taken off.
That's correct.
It was taken off. Yep.
Yeah, and it's not listed in the proposition.
The proposition that's in the agenda has it struck.
Okay.
Then it's not going to be. We can't buy it this year through these funds.
So it's just over $1 million from the Capital Reserve, $1,017,000.
Right, and this is the 2010 Capital Reserve, not as part of the operating budget.
Right. So you all do a great job of saying this all the time, but I know there's folks still watching as well, which means that this is not coming out of the operating budget. The money is already there. We're asking permission to spend the money that's already been.
As always, we can't do capital without capital expenditures without the taxpayers' permission. They allowed us to establish a capital reserve we've put money in it, that money is there, we're now asking you to use it for these purposes.
Right, we have to ask to be allowed to establish it and put money in it, and then we have to go back and say very explicitly how we're going to spend that money, and that's Proposition 2. And there may be are there other propositions on the budget ballot?
I don't believe so.
So for this year, it's just probably be 1 and 2. Because in the past, we had the third proposition that was to establish the 2010 capital reserve back in 2010.
No, we were considering another proposition for a lease of some land at Enfield, for the Enfield Community Center, and we just haven't gotten far enough along.
Right. Okay. Very good. Any other? It is a long proposition, resolution. Brad moves the resolution, but obviously all the sections and the propositions are listed there for you. Anything else? All in favor? That's everyone. I got Elder's raises here. So very good. Other business. Obviously, you can see the committee dates, the meeting dates. As of right now, Dr. Brown, we are scheduled for 2 Board of Ed meetings in April, and we can have more if we wish, but we'll wait. At this point, we're waiting on the state, and then we may have more conversations on an odd Tuesday or whatever. Right.
The town hall, I think everyone got that date.
April 9th.
April 9th. We'll send more information out about what that is going to look like this year. We'll be generating some questions also.
Is that 6 o'clock?
6:30, although folks both can.
Okay.
Danielle, you'll put those on our calendar. That's your calendar.
Good. Anything else?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Second by Pat, without objection. Thanks, everybody.
79.